Hello and welcome to the new Royal Court DLC for Crusader Kings 3. This DLC adds in some very cool stuff. It adds in two major systems that change how the game is played. The first is the culture system. So what they've done with culture is before culture was basically just a way of determining your tech group. If you were in a culture group with other people, you would get tech at the same rate, and whoever was the leader of your culture group would get to determine what your tech was focused on. And that was it. And that mechanic is still in the game. But what they've done on top of that is they've added in a system very similar to religions. So you get a series of buffs which kind of tailor how your culture is meant to play. And they're all very interesting, and I'm excited to see how it works, because there are other things that you can do with it as well, such as you can merge cultures together in order to create like a child culture which has bits of the previous two. And it's a system that I feel will add a lot of depth to how individual nations play in the game, because that was one of the problems I had. I played a campaign down here in Africa, and basically it felt exactly the same as playing a campaign up here in England, right? The two campaigns were vastly different places, different cultures, different everything, but realistically what I was doing in the game was pretty much identical. Hopefully the new culture system is going to change that. The other thing that they added in was a royal court system, as per the name of the DLC. So, what does the royal court system do? Well, it tries to tackle a different problem. It tries to tackle the fact that your individual courts and your courtiers really didn't matter. They were just pieces on the board to move around. Now, they are going to come to you with problems. They're going to say, hey, I have an issue with this guy. I want a bit of his land, or, you know, other similar things to that. And it also adds in some new mechanics for how you can theme your courts. So, for example, they've re-added in the artifact system. So the artifact system was something that was in Crusader Kings 2, and basically it was a way of saying, hey, I went on a crusade and I got this fancy sword, so now that's going to give my descendants a +1 to prowess because they use that sword, or it's going to give them a little bit of prestige or something. Or, if we go and have a look at our liege here, and have a first look at the royal court, our liege has an artifact called the Stone of Scone, which is basically the throne of Scotland. Now, if we have a look here, we get some prestige, you get some renown, you get some taxes, you get some court grandeur, which is a new system on top of it, you get some spearman maintenance lowering. It gives you a ton of different bonuses just for having this artifact. And that's a really cool system that they brought back in, and it gives you, like, you know, a reason to go out and do things in the world. Like, if you go out adventuring, you might come back with a cool new thing, which you can then use to, you know, gain bonuses back home. Or you can fund members of your court who come to you, and they might be like, I want to make a fancy dagger, and you go, okay, I'll give you some gold, off you go. And it gives you a little bit more moment-to-moment interaction with members of your court, which I think is always quite good. The other thing that the royal court system adds, and we're not going to spend too much time on it because currently the royal court is not our royal court, it's our liege's royal court, is it adds in court grandeur. Now, court grandeur is a new system that basically is just saying how prestigious is my court. But what this does, again, is adds in a ton of little bonuses here and there, and all these little bonuses add up to give you a little bit more flavor. So if we have a look here, you'll see that we've got some stylish fashion bonuses here, which give you some prestige and grandeur bonuses per month, and then they give you some extra prestige for your courtiers and guests. And courts also have a court type, so this is a warlike court, and warlike courts make people who are in the warlike court very good at war, so you get martial and prowess, and that stacks up the longer that you spend in that court. So it's, again, more flavor. And all of that's a really cool system that we're going to try and interact with in this campaign. But we're going to leave the royal court for just now, because royal courts are only for kings and emperors, and we are not playing a king or an emperor. We are playing a count, all the way down here in Scotland, right in the centre. Now, why are we playing this one? Well, we're playing this count because I want to interact with the culture system, and the culture system needs us to have a lot of different cultures nearby, and we definitely do here. So, right off the bat, we have Gaelic. Our liege has a different culture, he has Scots. If we have a look at our neighbour to the west, we have Norwegian. To the south, we have Anglo-Saxon. Over here, we have Irish. We have Welsh over there. We have a ton of different cultures all around us, and it's going to be interesting seeing how we interact with them. Now, I think this is a good point to have a quick look at the culture system, just so you have a rough idea of what I'm talking about. So, the Gaelic culture is our culture. If we have a look at it, you'll see that right off the bat, we have this. So this is our ethos, and the ethos is something that each culture has, and it just tells you what your culture is going to do. So our ethos is bellicose, which basically says to us that we are all about conflict and violence, right? We like to fight people. So we get men-at-arms costs down, we get some extra levy size, and we get some extra prowess. So all of that it easily tells you what that culture is going to do. Let me try and find somebody else who perhaps has a different culture. So if we have a look at Franconian here, you'll see that they have courtly. So instead of getting all those warlike bonuses, they get prestige, they get title creation lowering, they get opinion for people in their house, right? This is all. This means that you would be playing in a very different way. You wouldn't play a courtly culture in the same way that you would play a bellicose culture, right? They play in different ways, and that's quite a cool thing, in my opinion. Now, going back to our culture, the other things that you can see, we have cultural pillars. So these are things that, again, every culture has, and these are just very basic things about the culture. So we're part of the Gaelic heritage, so the important thing about heritage is, one, increases cultural acceptance, which is how much other cultures accept you, which is used for a variety of different things, like integrating other cultures into your culture, right? But it also determines whether you can create hybrid cultures. So having a Gaelic heritage means that we can't create a hybrid culture with another Gaelic culture because they're too similar. But for instance, if we wanted to create a hybrid of our culture and Scots here, we could, because they're West Germanic, we could create a hybrid. And this hybrid culture, if we have a look down here, is basically just going to be a merging of the two. So we could say, like, okay, it's Scoto-Gaelic, and we're going to go for, say, we'll say the heritage is R1, but we're going to switch to their language, right? Now, language is also a new system added into the game, which we don't need to worry about too much, but as you can see here, you can either speak a language or not speak a language. So if we were to change our culture to this, we wouldn't speak the language of our culture, which is not ideal. But we could also then say, okay, in this one, we quite like that our culture has Highland warriors, but, you know, we actually also quite like cities, so we're going to have both of those, right? And then we can choose what aesthetic we have, and we can be like, alright, I want our clothing to look like this, but I'd quite like our naming practices to be Scottish, right? It's just, you know, some flavor stuff, which makes it feel a little bit different. But we can't form a hybrid culture because we don't fulfill any of the requirements, so we're going to ignore that for just now. But it's just a thing to think about for later. Right, other pillars things. Martial, this one just purely says who can be your commanders and knights, and right now it's men only. And we would have to change our culture to make that different. And it also determines our base language, which then gives you a cultural acceptance bonus with other people. So if you have the same heritage and you have the same language, you're going to get along better, right? It just makes sense. And then on top of that, we have the aesthetics, which again is just what do your units look like, basically. What clothing are your characters going to wear? And then down here, in the final section, we have traditions. Now, traditions are a collection of benefits that basically just give you some buffs, right? So, dexterous fishermen. We get bonuses in combat when we're at the sea, and we get more supply when we're at the sea, right? Hill dwellers. We get some lowered costs for living in hills, and all the buildings that are in the hill farms line get a bonus, right? Highland warriors. You are actually more likely to get certain traits because you're this culture. That's the kind of thing that I think is going to be very interesting, that you're more likely to have these types of characters coming out of this realm, rather than it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you're going to have the same characters. But in our case, we're going to have some rough terrain experts because obviously all the terrain around us is hilly. Just makes sense. just to go through the other two, we have strong kinship. We get bonuses for doing things with people in our house. And if we have the family hierarch trait, people very much like that. And we get, extra prestige bonuses for that. But this one comes with a negative. It means that people don't tend to like us. They tend to like people specifically in their house. So it encourages you to have vassals who are members of your house, because if the vassal is a member of your house, they like you by +5, while if they're not, they have a -10 opinion. So it's an interesting way of shaping the way that you play. And then we have concubines. Concubines are very simple. It's just the gender law one. This one also comes, I think there's also some of this in religion as well. So I think these would have to line up. But basically it's just, can you have a concubine? How many spouses can you have? So because we have this one, we can have up to 3 concubines. Now you'll notice that we're at 5 of 6 traditions. If we wanted to, we could diverge our culture. So if I click this here, we could create Strathernian, and we could say, okay, I'm going to diverge, and I can... Well, actually, it's not in this particular menu. I've gone to the wrong place. Apologies, it is a new DLC. But basically, as we can carry on, we would be able to gain new traditions. And these new... it might actually only be available if you're the cultural head. That might be the other thing I'm thinking of. But yes, you would be able to gain new traditions based upon things that you were doing at the time. So if we were like, okay, it turns out that we're fighting a lot in flatlands, there might be a tradition that benefits us there. And then the other thing we have, which we already went into, is Diverge Culture. Now, Diverge Culture is what allows us to completely change things. And this is similar to creating a new religion. So we could be Strathernian, as I was saying, and we could say, okay, we're going to take this one, but actually, we've had enough of being a bellicose culture. We're instead going to switch to being a stoic culture, right? And that would be the difference. And we create a new culture with us as the cultural head. And the acceptance level would be 100% for people who were previously Gaelic, because we haven't really changed that much. But we could also be like, okay, I want to do this, but I want to take out, or I want to add in, a ruling caste tradition. Oh no, there you go. So we could add in a new tradition this way, and we could say, actually, I want to be... Did we already have one in here? I'm trying to see whether we already had one in this list, but no, okay. So we could say, actually, we're going to be a legalistic society. So we get lowered law costs, and justice more common, and things like that. And that would cost us a ton more prestige in order to change. I'm trying to find something that will change the acceptance. So instead of concubines, let's say that we had equal inheritance. It's still 100%. Can I find something that people are unhappy with? Let's say that I want family business here. We can't do it. Okay, they're still very accepting. Okay, I can't actually find anything that's going to make them not accepting currently, but if we had something, we could lower the acceptance level and say that we're diverging enough that there's new stuff here, like the stuff here that these people would not be accepting of. However, I haven't yet found any of that. Anyway, and that, as you can see, if we wanted all of these new things, that's going to cost us a ton of prestige, which we currently don't have. Anyway, I was talking about hybrid cultures. The other thing that we can see from this culture screen is that our culture is actually starting off as a hybrid culture. So ours was a hybrid of Irish and Pictish. So if we go and have a look at these, you'll see that we have 35% acceptance with Irish because we share the same heritage, same language, and the majority of the same religion, but their traditions are very different. Now if I go to Pictish, I assume that some of those traditions are going to be the same. Yeah, so we have Highland warriors from Pictish and concubines from Pictish, which are passed down to us. And the acceptance is 100% apparently. I think that might be because there are currently no Pictish characters. Yeah, there's no cultural head, so there's no characters, so it's just at 100% because it's like, well, there's nobody to say that we're not going to accept you, basically. Right, cool. So now we've had a look at the culture system, we had a look at the court system. It might be time to start playing the game. And to start playing the game, we need to work out what our goals are going to be. So immediately, my goal is to take over Scotland. Why do I want to take over Scotland? Because I want to get into the new court system. So, to do that, what do we want to do? Well, in here, in our culture, we have learned that we are good at being in hills. We are good at fighting in hills. So ideally, I want to take over some hill land. And I want to take over some hill land from people who aren't good in hills. Like, for instance, the Scots. So if we go Scot here, there are no hill bonuses. So it would make sense for us to try and find someone in that group to potentially take land off of. Now, that might not be possible. However, it is possible because we just found somebody. So maybe I want to take some land off of Athol here. Now, we're not as strong as they are, so potentially we might want to find an ally somewhere in order to get this to happen. Is there anybody who's as weak as us? How about Fife over here? Now, you're actually Plains, and you're Gaelic as well, but you are a little bit weaker than us, so maybe we could take your land and then start working our way north. That might be something to think about. I'm just looking at different options that we have as we're going in here. We might also want to make our way up to this top duchy here and start taking all of that, because all of this land is fantastic for us. Yeah, so we basically just want to start moving our way around here and eating up everything before we go to war with our liege. Let's see what we got. So we got a decision available to petition our liege. So this one would take us into the royal court screen. So this is basically just it. We can spend some prestige to ask our liege to do things like strengthen our border counties. And then in return, he might say, give me some gold. So we'll ignore that one for just now. We have pay homage. Pay homage is something where we can give something to our liege, or just turn up to our liege and say, we're going to, we're going to support you. And in return, I think we get renown as like a base benefit, and we might get other benefits as well. So that's something cool that we could do. We're not going to do that right now. We can choose a lifestyle. Well, that's something that I think we'll just go for. Right now, we're far down into the architect lifestyle. So with us being far down to architect, it might actually be worth us spending a little bit of time just building up our own provinces. So it might be worth us spending some time just upgrading some things. Are we currently in hills? That's something to think about. No, we're currently in plains. So we're actually getting no bonus at all from hill dwellers, which is a little unfortunate. Do we have the hill farms? I assume we don't have hill farms because we're not in hills. No. So yeah, we're getting no bonuses from that whatsoever. So that's not good. We're not on the coast, so we get no bonuses for coastal holdings, giving us defensive advantages. This is really just a horrible place for us to have our capital, to be honest. This would be a better... I'm trying to find, actually, no, it's plains. Trying to find a... Yeah, so I guess we'd actually prefer to have our capital up here in Inverness, where it's hills and on a coastal area. So that might be like our first major goal, is to acquire Inverness for ourselves. Something that's a little bit better. Either that, or we probably want to try and change our culture to something that, no longer cares about having hills. Is there anything else here that... No, there's nothing else here that gives us any benefits for where we are right now. Okay. But yeah, we might want to consider building up where we are because we're on the architect tree. So what do we have right now? So we have collect taxes. We have fort level up. We have levy reinforcement rate up. Popular opinion means that people are less likely to revolt against us. Development growth in our capital is nice because although they've changed the culture system, the old system is still here in the background, so it's going to increase the tech, in theory, of our culture over time, which would be cool. That's actually another cool thing about changing culture, is I believe that they've changed how these bits work. Yes, so previously it had to be like, if you were this culture, you got these bonuses. Now, I believe it's if our culture is in the area, we will get the bonuses, which is quite nice. I don't know if that was the way it worked before, but I think it's new. Anyway, so that's... something that we could do. But yeah, as our tech goes up, as our development goes up, that's going to increase the amount our tech goes up, and it's going to allow us to get some more of these bonuses. Right now, we don't control what bonuses we get because we're not the cultural leader. This guy up here is. In fact, what's interesting is because he is like a duke here, we could effectively become cultural leader without even needing to become a king, because if we can just weaken him enough, we'll just naturally become the cultural leader. Yeah, that's something good to think about. That's like a secondary goal. So we've got take Inverness, become cultural leader. Effectively, I'm saying I want to play as this character. That's where my mind is going. in like, you know, a generation, we want to be where that character is, plus having the land that we currently have and having this little bit of land in between. That's kind of like our short-term goals. But anyway, back in here. Professional workforce lowers building construction time, which is good. And then cutting cornerstones lowers the cost of a bunch of things. So this might be a good opportunity to build up, just because it will, you know, make our provinces better. And currently, it's quite a cheap thing to do, relatively speaking. How much do these things cost? 142 gold. Yeah, that's the main problem with it. Is it may be fairly cheap, but we still don't actually have any money towards it. The other option is that we go for something like Marshal. Now, what would Marshal give us? Marshal would give us the ability to have more troops. More troops makes battles better, and then we can just, you know, get the other stuff once we have land, which is also a fair call. Let's go for some Marshal. I'm going to go for strategy focus. We're just going to try and get as much Marshal as possible to increase our troop count as much as possible, right? That's really the goal here. We're not married as well. Being married would help us quite a lot because it'll give us bonuses to stats. Let me see what else we got in here. So, train commanders or organize army. We're really worried about the base size of our army right now, so we're going to go with that. Train commanders might be something that we consider doing in the future once we've got, you know, enough troops to be working with. This guy is absolutely awful at his job, and we can't replace him, so I'm afraid that it looks like we're just going to lose piety or vassal opinion. What's the other option? Piety or vassal opinion loss and upset target. Okay, I guess we'll keep him on religious relations. Our steward seems pretty good at his job. Collecting taxes seems good. Spymaster doesn't hate us. Well, that's definitely a good start. Is there anybody who's better at the job? Nope, doesn't hate us, is the best at the job. Seems good to me. Chancellor, again, best at the job. We're going to get him to manage domestic affairs because we want our vassals to like us. Or is foreign affairs, does that also include your liege? Let's see here. Always forget. It increases your fellow vassals' opinion of you. That's cool. Let's stick with foreign affairs then. That's fine. Right. And then I just want to check that our marshal is the best guy. We have somebody who's better. This guy is not currently landed, so we'll just replace him with the person who's better at the job. Because that will, again, give us more troops, which will make battles easier. Right, let's find some people to marry. In terms of marriages, who are we looking for? We're looking for people who are maybe over this area or down here, or basically in areas where we're not interested in. Like, if we could get an alliance with Strathclyde, that would be pretty much perfect. They're within our realm. They're not in any area that we're even considering attacking. They would be great. So, actually, let me just have a look. Are any of you not married? Unmarried? 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 They're all a little bit old, though. Basically, we'd be rolling the dice and saying, we'd basically just be saying, okay, our son is going to be fine, although we can have concubines. You know what? Let's make this marriage one that we make for the alliance, and then we'll have, yeah, then we'll have concubines for children. That seems good. I was also just thinking, what's your line of succession like? Where does it go? Goes to the 3 daughters. Okay, so if we were to marry, the oldest daughter and have a child, that would work. Although we're probably not going to have a child with the oldest daughter. I guess we're most likely to have a child with the youngest daughter, right? So if we marry them and have a child, that child will then inherit that land. That seems like a good idea. And then they'll be a member of our house, and then our culture's house bonus would come into play. Yeah, let's see if we can arrange marriage between her and me. Will not accept. Why not? He's marrying down. Well, I mean, that is fair. That is fair. Will you let me marry either of your other daughters? Very much no. Okay. And then how about your third daughter? So I didn't really prepare for this one where he would just say straight up, no, I don't like you, and the answer's no. Huh. Well, what do we do with that? What do we do with that? How far away are we on this arranged marriage for the youngest child? We're minus 26. Now, right now he has a negative 18 opinion of us. He also has a... Wait, opinion of us is actually down twice. So he has a negative 24. Oh, wait, yeah. And that lines up here. I don't know why it's separated, though. That's kind of weird that it's separated into -6 and -18. But we can get 24 opinion if we can just improve his opinion of us. And then... Well, let's just see. How much would his opinion change if we sent him some money? We don't even have enough money to consider that. Okay. We could try swaying him to make him like us. That's a little bit desperate. We could also attempt to learn his language, which is a new system. I don't know if we already talked about it. But if we learn his language, then he'll like us better. How long would it take for us to learn his language? 8 years, and there's not a high chance. Well, that's not very good. Yeah, I think we could try swaying him, I suppose. 2 years, chance of it going up by 25. Maybe we get some concubines in the meantime. Yeah, let's start that scheme. I'm going to start swaying him. Right. Also, just to point out, if we go to our decisions here, we do have some decisions that are with the new DLC. So we have find an Gaelic teacher. So this would be somebody who could teach us our liege's court language. Now, there's a separation between court and actual language. So just because Gaelic is the court language doesn't necessarily mean it's the language that this guy has as his cultural language. In fact, you can see here, he doesn't actually speak. I believe he doesn't actually speak his cultural language either. I don't know how you see what language the languages people speak. That's probably something I should work out. But let me see if I can find one that's different. It's High German. Oh no, that might be we don't speak it. I think that's we don't speak it actually, not he doesn't speak it. I'm trying to find one that's different from the court. There might not be any because it's the start of the game, but let's see. Greek is going to speak Greek. This one might be Latin. Let me have a look. That's Greek. How about papacy here? Oh, you don't have a court. How about... Oh, you're too low down for a court. You know what? I'm struggling to find one where the court language is different as a base level. England, I think... Yeah, we already looked into it, so that's going to be Gaelic, and then if we have a look at the court language... Yeah, okay, that's the same. Denmark. In this particular circumstance, they're exactly the same. So his court language is Norse, and then his language is the Norse language. Okay. So in theory, they could be different. I haven't found a singular situation where they are, but I'm sure there must be one on the map. Anyway, so we could learn his court language in order to get some extra attitude. I think it would give us bonuses in his court. I'm not 100% sure. I'll need to double check all the buffs and stuff when we get to that point. We've got this new one because our liege has a court. We could try and introduce a new fashion to it, which is basically a diplomacy off in order to get some kind of bonuses, but we don't need to worry about that because our diplomacy is terrible, so we're never going to be clicking that button. And then we have the one from our culture, which is recruit hill specialists, so we can get high martial commanders who are good at fighting in hills. So that might be something to do before we go for our wars up north. But yeah. Again, not something for us right now. So, trying to improve the we're trying to improve this guy down here's opinion of us, so we can get a marriage there. In the meantime, let's find a concubine. Our spy master could be okay as long as it doesn't lower opinion. It would, however, mean that we're very likely to be killed. But yeah, we can try and find a concubine just to get us a spare to go with our heir. Let's maybe... Well, none of these people have any inheritable traits, so I'm just going to choose one, and we're just going to have the marriage. Or not the marriage, the concubineship. There we go. Chance of children, medium. Cool. Seems good. Right. Now, for our son, do we have anybody we can marry off to? Now, for him, because he's the character that we're going to be moving forward with, I'm looking to get some inheritable traits. So... let's start with inheritable. Then, we've got some new options here, I think. Well, I think some of these options are new because I don't remember it having this much of a scroll wheel before. I'm just seeing if there's anything we need to worry about in here. Let's say that we're looking for a child. Well, that narrows down our options rather. Inheritable trait child gives us Friedrika. Okay. She's got Amazonian as a trait, which is also Herculean if it's a male character. Well, that seems cool. Where are you? You're from down here. So you're probably not going to help us in any war, but it is actually a pretty good marriage. Okay. Is this your only daughter? No, you already have one daughter, but you won't allow us to marry that one. Although I suppose she's 18, so that's probably the reason, because it's not in our filter. And then you have another younger daughter. Okay, so we could potentially swing some land out of that eventually if we were to kill her off. Okay, let's try this marriage. So, we get the Amazonian trait, potentially, for their children. There's no real problems. The age difference is not that far apart. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's send the proposal through. So we're not really worried about alliances for him. We're more worried about getting good traits going forward. Right. Anything else that we need to do? Ah, yes. We need to designate a guardian for our son. Our son currently looks like he's going down a martial path, which is a good path for him. Let's stick with it. Now, generally you're looking for somebody who has some sort of intelligence inheritable trait, which we don't currently have. Just because they're better at it. But I believe that a good education trait will help. So we're going to go for martial and knight. We'll see whether that works. And hire a court physician. Now, we're not necessarily going to do one, but I will show you a new part of another new mechanic, which is the court has court positions. Now, previously, court physician was the only position, so it was just like, up at the top. But now it's a whole new system. We can see that we have a ton of different positions that we can fill in, and they'll all have different effects. Now, the difference between these and minor titles from Crusader Kings 2 is that the amount of money that they cost is actually enough that you have to consider whether or not you want to do it. Like, say we wanted to bring in a court tutor, which would help us study languages and also helps children studying languages. Well, we could do that, but it's going to cost us half of our monthly income, which is quite a lot, really. And we don't really have anybody who's that good at it. But we could bring in somebody to do that, potentially. Court physician is one that we should consider putting somebody in. Although, again, we have nobody particularly good at that, so we would have to try and find them from further afield. But they don't cost quite as much. Is there anything else that's really good? Antiquarian allows us to potentially do stuff with artifacts. We do have artifacts of our own. We just don't have anything to do with them right now. But we could commission them if we had the antiquarian and we had money, which we have neither of. We get a seneschal, which is probably something worth getting once we start conquering some land due to it giving us control growth. Bodyguards make you less likely to be murdered or die in battle. Personal champion can take your place in some duels. That's kind of cool. And lowers your dread decay, so makes it so that people are more likely to fear you. Then there's a whole bunch that we're just nowhere close to getting because we just don't fulfill the requirements. But there's quite a lot of them that give you different buffs. But you'll see they all cost, their own little bit of money, which is just going to slowly eat away at you and cause you not be able to buy other things. Court tutor is the only one I'm kind of interested in, though, because I would quite like to have our child be buffed up a little bit. Let's maybe make our concubine here our court tutor. Sure, we're going to appoint her. We are going to spend half of our money on it. If you choose to revoke it later, she will hate us and we'll lose prestige. Okay, that's fine. So she likes us for doing this. It unlocks the have child study language decision. Okay. Is that on the child? Yes, okay. There are no valid targets for the learn language. Oh, I guess my court tutor would have to know the language. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I don't think any of our potential court tutors did know another language, but yeah, I think they all only knew this language. So, okay. That's a good thing to know. Anyway, well, hopefully it also improves education outcomes, so it does actually have another benefit, but we might get rid of her once our son comes of age. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to end this first episode there. Thank you for watching. Now, I only say this at the end of the first episodes of series, but please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, clicking the bell, all that sort of stuff, because it helps the series grow and it helps the channel grow. Episodes usually go out daily, although sometimes it's different, but mostly they go out same time daily. And I hope to see you here for the next episode. If there are any of the new mechanics I haven't quite got right, or if there's anything that I'm not quite saying right in terms of pronunciation, or just generally anything else you want to mention, at the start of a series is a great point to do it in the comments, because one, it helps with the SEO and helps the video get out to different places, but two, it helps me actually get it correct. So if you've got any problems with the video, let me know down in the comments. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.